You're listening to the Ask Drone U podcast. You ask, we answer your drone questions. Whether you're here to turn your passion into profit or you simply fly for fun, we're a community of learners and teachers who aspire to achieve greatness. We are
Drone U.
Hey everyone, and welcome to another edition of Ask Drone U. My name is Paul.
My name is Rob, and thank you for joining us today. We really appreciate it. We are committed to bringing you value, answering your questions, helping you go deeper with your knowledge and be more effective in your drone work, your drone businesses. That's our goal. We want to see you succeed, hence why we sit in these chairs and have these conversations.
Some sitting higher than others, and appreciate all those sweet comments.
I'm not going to lie to you. We don't read comments very often because, well, you probably can figure out why. But we were reading on a particular podcast because we were trying to learn, and it's an important subject. And so we were reading some of those.
There's some funny ones.
One of the comments was, why does Rob sit higher than you? It looks funny. So thank you. I removed a pillow.
To answer the question, Bob, it's because we have different chairs, because Rob likes his tall chair at his office at the front of the warehouse.
And I don't want to wheel it all the way back here to the studio.
It's 120 feet and obviously too long to get it done.
You know what really cracks me up about this first couple of minutes? Some people might laugh. Some people are going to be pissed off that we didn't get right into the show. I'm not going to lie. I'm getting to the point where I want to bring people value, answer questions, go deep with and help people. But if people don't enjoy the banter and the fun that we have, there's a lot of other options of what they can listen to.
Sure, yeah.
But they're not going to get the information as deep, even if it's 10 minutes later into the show. So, I don't know. Oh, man, maybe I'm feeling spicy today.
You're feeling spicy for sure. You are definitely feeling spicy.
No, it's just like we work really hard to get people really good information, and then people bitch about how long it took us because we're having fun. Should we start this one over?
Probably.
Oh, look it. We're not starting this over. You know why? Because Paul's getting a taste of his own damn medicine, what I've been dealing with for 10 years. That's why we're going to keep going.
That's all, folks.
I love it. I love it. This is awesome. And so I really hope you've stuck with us and you're not mad at us for not getting right to the point. But we're going to get to the point now after we talk about something.
Well, I will say that sometimes, look, I'm one of those people that I definitely value people getting right to the point. And I like Elon Musk's, if you can't get to your point in 30 seconds, I don't want to have a conversation with you. I love that. I think it's awesome. The problem is that while it breeds efficiency, it doesn't breed
relationship.
It doesn't breed relationships, and it doesn't breed deep relationships, or just, the opportunity to get to know people and kind of talk about things. So,
honestly, I would say if you've watched this for any length of time, you have a pretty good sense of who we are. Really.
Hopefully.
Anyways, but that said, that's enough banter.
Yes. So today we're going to be kind of talking about construction. Construction has been getting more and more and more traction, more momentum, especially in the drone industry. There's been some great reports coming out too about how VDC in construction fueled by drones is creating 10% more profitable projects as a whole and reducing change orders by almost 10%, which is significant as far as money is concerned, as far as the transfer of money between general contractors, subcontractors, etc. So more and more construction companies, even the small guys, are really seeing value across the board. And so we're going to answer today's question, which actually comes in from Italy, talking about kind of what is the minimum equipment needed, kind of talking also about the high value adds for construction deliverables, because there really are a couple of key things that I just feel like a lot of people are not doing, and the opportunity to succeed is significant. So I want to talk about that, kind of the power of storytelling there. Also kind of wanting to talk about mapping software, because, we've talked about, what is drone mapping software. And the whole YouTube of you can be a professional drone mapper, that whole YouTube stuff, that has absolutely murdered our industry. For everyone who's out there trying to create these videos, these cutesy, hey, you can fly automated patterns, throw it and drone deploy, and now you're a drone mapper. Look what that did in the state of North Carolina. I'm so disappointed with whoever hired, and I think it was Institute of Justice, whoever hired the SME or the subject matter expert for the North Carolina mapping case. And yes, Forrest, this is the same case that you brought to my attention. If you look at the depositions from the subject matter experts, the guy pretty much is like, yeah, I take images with my drone and I throw it in drone deploy. And they're like asking him, well, how do you know it's accurate? How do you know this? What is the basis of accuracy? Blah, blah, blah. And he pretty much is like, I throw my photos in drone deploy and I get a map back. And it's like, well, the guy couldn't explain ground sampling distance. The guy couldn't explain relative error versus absolute error. The guy couldn't explain and understanding how you can ensure accuracy or precision in these maps, and how there's a key differentiation between surveying and simply taking elevations on an HVAC unit, or elevations for landscaping, or things that do not have to do with legal property rights and whatnot. So these videos are really killing our industry, and it kind of, I wish we weren't here, but hey, it's the nature of the beast. And as Ole would say, who I had breakfast with him and Trent in Washington, as Ole would say, I have no feelings about it because I can't change it. So, which I think is...
oh, man, if that's the case, we should all just go take a nap.
Hey, sounds good to me. Yesterday, I was feeling burnout hard, and a nap helps. So, a nap doesn't suck. So we're going to be talking about drone mapping kind of software, as far as like these different softwares for different types of construction deliverables, because there are very clear winners and losers there depending on the deliverables. And we're actually excited because DroneU now is also a certified Pix4D instructor and whatnot. We're excited to get that going with Pix4D. So when it comes to Pix4D, when it comes to Esri, we can really go deeper than the competition. And if you are going to be successful in construction over the long run, you do need to have a basic understanding of how drone mapping works, how photogrammetry works, the limitations therein, understanding accuracy, understanding ground control points, etc. In all honesty, we live in a world where you can so easily get crushed by what you don't know that you don't know. You know what I mean? And
yeah, especially in a Sue Happy world.
Yes.
And especially in a world of construction where we're talking big dollars. Small mistakes cost lots of money.
It really does. And so we're also going to have an interview here soon talking about how one construction company is using drones and other robots to really automate the construction process as a whole. Really excited for that show. We're going to be filming that this week, hopefully get it out next week or the following week. All that to be said, let's get into today's question, which is brought to you by our good friends at FreeFly. Look, if we have to go through the DJI ban, and if DJI, Autel, and everyone who's affiliated or licensed with DJI can no longer sell drones in the United States, well, it provides an opportunity. As some would say, you can either survive or you can thrive. And if you're considering picking up an American-based drone system, our favorite platform is far and above the FreeFly Astro. With the Sony full-frame Exmor sensor, drone mapping is much faster and much more efficient than even like with something like the Mavic 3 Enterprise. But these drones and the high-quality capability that they can capture is going to open up doors to more sustainable contracts for local and state governments, contracts for the federal government, and contracts that are going to help provide answers, data-based decisions in anything infrastructure related. If you're thinking about moving into an American drone system and you want one system that's going to solve all your problems rather than trying to piecemeal these niche drones together, then come to us here at DroneU, and you can shoot us an email. You can reach out to me directly, paul@thedroneu.com. And I can send you a brochure where you can learn all about the FreeFly Astro Prime. I would call it America's #1 drone platform because even though it doesn't compete with Skydio on obstacle avoidance, the large camera sensor, mechanical shutter, and the astronomical quality and cinema-like quality in the video production makes this drone far and above the best over the competition. If you're looking for one, just reach out to me direct, paul@thedroneu.com. And as always, thank you for watching Ask Drone U.
Hi, Drone U team. My name is Jonah and I'm from Italy. I've been following your channel for a while now and I really appreciate all the great content you produce. I'm reaching out because I'm considering starting a drone business in Italy focused on the construction industry, and I'm wondering if you could create a video covering the essential equipment and strategy needed to launch a successful drone business in this specific sector. I'm particularly interested in understanding the minimum investment required to get started and what kind of drones nowadays in 2024 and also softwares would be necessary to offer a basic but competitive service. Given the current market, I'm curious about your recommendations for both new and used equipment. Thank you for your time and consideration. Have a nice day.
Thank you, Jonah, from all the way from Italy. We are grateful that you have found us, that you're listening, and then you took some time to call in and ask a really good, detailed, thoughtful question. As I think about this, there's different ways that we could go depending on who the ultimate hearer of the information is, meaning this is somebody who wants to start a new drone business and get into the world of construction with what drones can do. It's a little bit different than, say, a municipality or a town in Italy, for example, who has more resources and what they might do with like the construction that the municipality is undergoing and the various things they're going to be doing. So curious how you're going to approach this in terms of advice for Jonah. And let's hop right in.
First of all, thank you very much. I think we're going to skip right past the regulatory requirements. Europe has a similar system as Part 107 here in the United States. So we're going to get right past that because that's kind of a no-brainer regulatory-wise. I don't know what Europe's recommendations are, but here in the United States, insurance is not required. But here at Drone U, we recommend it. Now, moving on, there was one thing that he mentioned in the question that I had written up an outline, essentially, of how to answer this question. And I didn't realize the last time I listened to the question, he brought up, what about used drones? And this brings up a really important point because before I get into, here's the minimum equipment, let's talk about creative and technical packages. Let's talk about mapping software and advanced use cases and the value of drones in construction. Before we hit that, I think there's something that is very relevant here, which is used drones in construction. There's a significant problem going on where the environment of drone mapping applications has dwindled for used drones, and DJI has not helped this either. If you have a Phantom 4 Pro, and you update your firmware to be used for remote ID, there are so many glitches now and issues in using third-party applications to do mapping deliverables. I mean, even when Mike and his team were here last week, I warned him, I said, hey, I hope you guys are on older Phantom firmware and just using a remote ID tag, because in all honesty, let's be real here, and let's be real that you're going to have problems if you're on the new firmware using the built-in remote ID. I'm just going to be real with you. You're probably not going to be able to run any mapping missions, like whether it's Pix4D Capture, which is not in the App Store anymore.
It's not?
No, so you have to use Capture Pro, and Capture Pro was designed and built for the Mavic 3 Enterprise. So we did get Capture Pro to work, I think, on 1 of 4 drones, but all the other drones glitched out. Ultimately, they used Drone Deploy to be able to run a double grid mission and capture the data that they needed, but they couldn't do it with all the apps that they were used to. And this brings up an important thing. If, buying a used drone, I still think the Phantom 4 Pro has astronomical value. I mean, as Bill would say, the Honda Civic of drones, some would say the F-150 of drones. depending on if you like to sit up high or down low. But long story short is that drone has great video features, great photo features, and great autonomous mapping and acquisition features, right? These newer drones, they might be able to map and take photos, but the video quality is garbage. You literally get the same video quality in a Mavic 3 Enterprise that you get in a Mini 4 Pro or Mini 3 Pro. Mini 3 Pro. You can't even shoot 4K 60 video on a Mavic 3 Enterprise. So, you think about this and you think about the used drones. I do love a Phantom 4 Pro, but if you're going to buy a used drone, you want to make sure that that Phantom 4 Pro has not had updated firmware. And if you do have to comply with the European version of Remote ID, which there is one, make sure that you use a tag and not the internal firmware, because if you use the internal firmware, it will essentially brick most of the good options of apps to do mapping-based imagery. So I don't want to spend too long on that. It is a very real issue, something to be aware of. So just understand that. When he talks about the minimum equipment for construction drone services, the way that I want to answer this question is with the understanding that, like real estate, any drone pilot or drone service provider would attack this service with multiple packages in mind, essentially offering what I would say the customer no more than 3 options as far as packages. A basic option that's comparable to competitors that provides your progression photos, an orthomosaic, and maybe like an orbital video, something very simple. You can probably get $500 to $1,000, let's call it €400 to €900 in Italy for a regular repeated inspection.
For each one.
For each site, yeah, that price point for each site. I'm saying that price point for the minimum base package of a simple single grid orthomosaic, progression photos, which is typically like 5 to 10 photos from the corners and then looking out, and a simple orbital video, right? Package 2, you want to consider offering 3D point clouds because measurements can be taken from those 3D point clouds, especially elevation-based measurements. If you're just flying single grids to do orthomosaics, good luck getting any elevation-based measurements or heights. For example, I just helped a student here in Denver map a nursing home because they did not want to send the facilities director up a ladder to be on the roof to literally measure the height of AC units. And he got paid $1,500 to create a 3D model, measure the height of AC units 5 times, literally $1,500. Okay. If that doesn't show you the value of drone data.
So this is very real.
This happened last week. Yeah.
You want a case study?
Yeah, that's a case study right there. I helped him write his contract. I helped him with the whole thing. So,
did you get a cup of coffee?
Yeah, I actually let him rent our AeroPoint version 1s too to help him georeference, because whenever you're doing elevation-based measurements, you want to make sure that you have some georeferencing there, because the Z-axis on your drone can be hundreds of feet off and it can just cause huge issues. But yes, he bought me lunch at DC Oaks, so that was pretty yummy. I'm not going to lie. And they had the Oktoberfest, so that was a bonus. But anyway, when it comes to the value of drone data, it's so important that if you simply keep the timeline of the project itself, you're going to save the company the regulatory fees if the project is over time, but the labor costs, they're also going to be change order costs. This can increase, the overall production cost of the site astronomically. So when you are having these regular based inspections, you're going to help prove whether contractors said that they did what they were supposed to do, how much material they were supposed to bring versus what they actually brought, and even keeping people on time. Like, think of, again, I bring this example up time and time again, which is the concrete contractor, essentially having a 2D map and a 3D model of a site, and then measuring every week how much concrete is actually being poured versus what was notated on the timeline. That deviation can be, a week's of work, 3 weeks of work, and that can push the project further and further down the line. If general contractors understand that problem is occurring before they see the result or the delay of the project, they can actually take time to fix that, get on the concrete contractor, pour more quickly, and make up for that time before it's too late. Which the resulting cost can be your value of hundreds of thousands of dollars.
So is this package 2 we're talking about?
Yeah, so that's what I was going to get to is that
okay.
package 2, you really want to think of a 3D point cloud. Yes, you can shoot your photos, but then, think of hyperlapse based video and just short, quick clips that they can be used for like Instagram Reels, for YouTube, etc. Package 3, and this is really what I wanted to get to, and this is where I see the huge opportunity in constructions with drone service providers. There is a massive opportunity in creating beautiful cinematic videos using ground footage and your drone, and essentially doing simple, complex, I say simple and then complex, simple motions with something, with something like a Osmo Pocket 3. I mean, what a powerful tool and a powerful camera. Ultimately, if you can get creative in doing like slides behind someone's shoulder to reveal what they're working on, if you can do some focus racks, if you can do some, punching in and out motions with your arm, ultimately, I am seeing some enormous success with pilots that are augmenting their technical deliverables with just really good video, aerial video that's, using great reveals and orbits and dolly zooms paired with footage on the ground showcasing guys and how they're working. And really, it is kind of a complex formula of, okay, get slides. Okay, make sure you have an ND filter on. Make sure you're filming at a high frame rate. Make sure that your shutter speed is double your frame rate. Make sure that you're using light to capture lens flares as you're doing these slides. Capturing a variety of different shots and then pairing it with your aerial data. Look, we have classes on all this stuff, and we're actually about to release a new class on this specific topic taught by our good friend Jake Levesque. And I got to be honest with you, this is the stuff that is going to get you the much higher paying drone jobs.
So let's talk about that.
Well, just to finish really quick, the package 3, just think of the creative video, the 3D point cloud, and better photos. Go ahead. Sorry.
Yeah. So for what purpose? So you got all this great stuff that you just described in package 3. What is the strategy behind it that somebody like Jonah can go to a construction company or even a home builder or something, and with that information in package 3, what is he selling other than pretty pictures and pretty videos?
Honestly,
how would you sell that?
I think that there's an entire class on how to sell that. But at the end of the day, what we're talking about is the visual storytelling of the hard work that's going into these projects that are developing these cities, that are developing these areas to provide nicer environments overall. At the end of the day, construction companies want to be just as relevant on Instagram as everyone else. So you look at people like the Quorum group on Instagram, they're using simple plugins over very cinematic video that is it's a simple formula, right? It's not well-known or well-known video techniques. So they're using plugins to essentially take a building and drop it in place like building blocks to make it look like, oh, this is how it was built. It's just visual storytelling that's engaging, not seen before, and is a cool showcase of work that's being done. It's celebrating and it's creating a story of the work that is being done to essentially grow a neighborhood. It's honestly so simple in my mind, yet hard for me to verbalize.
Yeah, I think the question is, what is the end game? And so I think everything that it's really interesting to think of it because I can see and feel and hear you getting excited about the creative elements of it. I think the value to that particular company, or even to this company Quorum that you're talking about, and some of this is obvious, but I don't think it should go unsaid, but we're talking about how can you convey to other potential customers, even to getting the best talent to come work for you because you do really cool things at your company. And showing all of these things is going to grow your company. It's going to enhance your marketing materials. It's going to give your marketing team more to work with.
It's also the perceived value, Rob. I mean, like if you're showcasing
To who? Perceived value to who? That's what
to
I'm trying
their
to.
potential clients.
That's
to
what
the
I'm trying to
clients
get
of
to.
Who is the city, the clients of the county, the clients of the state,
So
whatever.
the constituents in that case, like
It-
the voters, if you will.
It's not, well, I think that there is perceived value everywhere along the linear curve of the constituents to then the city looks good, then the builder looks good, the builder gets more jobs, the builder has this reputation. Literally, what I'm seeing with bigger construction companies is that the more extravagant their animations are for bidding on these projects, the higher likelihood that they have of getting these projects. And so you're seeing more and more point clouds, more and more 3D models that are thrown into things like Cinema 4D, 3ds Max, those animated renovations, those animated construction projects are visually showcasing the change over time. And when the builder can make the project look cool, and then the city puts out that information and they look good, people are getting reelected. I mean, like it's a trickle down effect, and so the perceived value is astronomical, not just to the construction company.
Right. And so then if you're talking about a community, a municipality, it could be more businesses are going to come to that town.
Oh, yeah.
Right.
I mean,
So it's
again,
going to help economically. And I'm trying to get to that big picture of like if you're Jonah or if you're someone in the States and you're trying to sell these services, because yes, you can talk about creating a story and helping them create beautiful visuals, but ultimately you're trying to get them to understand the why those things are important. I know it seems obvious.
I think it's as simple as standing out by creating visually appealing videos, because anything that's visually appealing, I think, has a higher perceived value.
Yeah.
Is that not what you're after?
No, I mean, I think that's the answer to what you're doing. It's not really the why of why you're doing it, but I think we're getting to the why as well in terms of obviously to get better, higher paying, more complex jobs.
Yeah. It's the difference of making $500 a week versus $2,500, $5,000.
Well, but I'm also talking about the person that's going to make the $5,000. How are they going to convince the potential customer, i.e. construction company, that they should pay them that $5,000? Because what's the construction company going to get from it? Not just pretty videos.
Yeah, I think we could do an entire show on the value of pretty videos, because again, these companies having that strategic advantage of visually appealing videos, showcasing their efficiency, showcasing the quality control, showcasing their ability to even keep projects on time is astronomical value. And there are many different ways to showcase that value, and like the case studies that we talked about,
Right.
But my point in bringing this up is to say that, a lot of people are focused on the technical deliverables of construction.
Yeah.
And we just worked with a construction company that is very interested in technical deliverables, but they also care way more about the story of their projects. They care more about showcasing their value to not just their clients, but the world at hand. And there's so much value there in the storytelling aspect of it, because it keeps them relevant. It keeps business coming in the door. And I think it's almost impossible to calculate the true value. I mean, you think about the difference of picking up a big project versus not, all because of the perceived perception of the capacity of that company.
Yeah. Yeah. How many construction companies would you say? I don't want to get us off track, so just tell me to shut up. I'm going to stick to my outline. But how many companies do you think have VDC departments?
Gosh, that's a great question. I would probably argue that any construction company that's doing more than 10 million in business annually probably has a VDC department. And VDC is quintessential to high quality buildings, if you think about it. I mean, VDC, or virtual design and construction, is taking your HVAC, your electrical, your all aspects of your building plans and ensuring the most efficient use of placement of these objects. and how even, reducing the number of curves and 90-degree angles in your HVAC system will reduce the overall utility bills of a given building. I mean, like if you just think about that one particular problem, how many 90-degree angles they're going to have in their HVAC system and reducing that into curves and the impact, the monetary and financial impact of their actual, energy efficiency. That's also going to impact not just their utility bills, but their insurance.
Yeah.
If it's cheaper to run the building and the building is much more secure, their insurance bills are going to go down. So
True.
That's a great question as far as how many departments have VDC department.
The reason I asked that is it's almost like a good screening mechanism. If a company has a VDC department, even if it's one person or somebody that kind of oversees the concept, that's a company that is thinking about the value that you can bring with a drone, even though they don't know they're thinking about it in that way, maybe.
Oh, yeah, 100%.
But it's somebody that is sort of primed to be educated for what you're talking about.
Well, and that brings up a good point because sometimes you don't want to have to educate a potential client because you could waste a lot of time.
Yeah, exactly. And so that's why somebody that understands the need for VDC and has somebody in-house that's working in that regard, regardless of the size of that VDC effort, that implies as a screening tool that they are primed for what you're able to do.
100%.
Yeah.
100%. So let's talk about, he mentioned what is the minimum equipment. Just to summarize that, I think, you're going to need an enterprise-based drone. Most of the consumer drones don't offer acquisition plans, but you might benefit from having a consumer-based drone to do things like your hyperlapses. Hyperlapse videos sell. It's a great, easy social media video for these construction companies to put out, and it could be a part of your regular packages like package 2 that we talked about. So when we talk about minimum equipment, you could buy a Mavic 3 Enterprise used if you want. I would also recommend something like a Mini 4 Pro or an Air 3 or an Air 3S to provide those really beautiful hyperlapse videos to add into your packages. The bridge between creative and technical is so important. And then when we're talking about the mapping software for these technical deliverables, just to have a quick, succinct rundown, which, by the way, we talk about this at length in our comprehensive mapping course. I highly recommend that you check that out. That is available to members. You can become a member and gain access to it right now. But Drone Deploy. A lot of people know Drone Deploy. It is ideal for creating orthomosaics. And it's really great for basic site mapping with tools for volumetric and linear measurements. I do think that their volumetric measurements and their reporting tools therein are some of the best. You have the ability to change base layers depending on the type of volume that you're taking. But in addition, you can color label the different volumetrics and save those settings if you're essentially mapping the same site over and over and over again, which is really powerful. Now, if you're an earthworks company, something like Propeller's photogrammetric system is going to probably provide better volumetric efficiencies, meaning how much dirt was needed to be moved to level a site versus how much was moved. The earthwork efficiencies are done best by Propeller's system. When it comes to generating highly accurate, highly detailed 3D models for construction analytics, for doing point cloud hyperlapses, for doing video animation tools, I really recommend Pix4D Mapper. Now, the thing is, if you're doing really large scale mapping projects and you're handling enormous data sets and you really love, the 3D capability of Pix4D's data products, Pix4D Matic is honestly an amazing tool for georeferencing large sites. Now, if you are working for government agencies, if you are working with construction companies that are doing work for the city or for the state, they might have legacy data in ArcGIS, data of what the environment used to look like, the utilities of that environment, planning for that environment. Honestly, a comprehensive cloud-based solution that is designed to compare modern drone datasets with legacy drone datasets, you really want to consider Esri's SiteScan because it is so easy. I mean, one-click, easy and convenient methodology of gathering your orthomosaics and then comparing that against legacy-based data. There are other options out there. Obviously, there is Metashape by far the best 3D modeling tool, which is now free for businesses sub $1 million, is going to be reality capture. There's honestly an astronomical amount of drone software out there, and you really need to be thinking about the deliverables that you're providing to companies, because drone mapping software is not cheap.
Mm-hmm.
It's really not cheap. And a lot of people would say, well, what about ODM? And I think ODM is great if you are very budget limited. I think ODM is a great starting point, a great starting solution. But ultimately, in order to scale your jobs to make it easier to report and share mapping data, you're going to want to consider a paid service that kind of takes some of these workflows and systems and simplifies them, because I think it's going to have a massive impact.
Yeah.
So anyway.
One of the things I've thought about is a way to keep the job going post construction completion.
Keep the job going post completion.
If you are a drone pilot, how do you keep earning money from a project once it's done? And I'm wondering about things like, because construction companies will have warranties on what they build. So maybe you can keep doing inspections to, I don't know, I'm just kind of thinking out loud because he asked about strategy. How do you keep that income coming in even when the construction project is done? So maybe it's continuing to do.
Well, if you had really cool hyperlapses of the site being built and you could sell it to the real estate team who's actively selling or leasing the space, it could be
one way.
Very helpful.
Mm-hmm.
That's a really good question. I feel like we could have an entire podcast on that particular question, because we talk about pre-construction, we talk about during construction.
Exactly.
And post-construction is one of those things that we don't really hit because it adds numerous levels of complexity. And ultimately, if we're trying to build a scalable drone business, it's kind of like, let's focus on our main workflow and deliverables, build our automation systems therein, and, really optimize that system as much as possible.
Yeah, I just wonder
if
it's a bit of an untapped element to all this is the post-construction.
I'm sure it is, and it also begs the question as to the brevity or the degree therein of like, okay, it's untapped. How much potential revenue generation is really there?
Mm-hmm.
How can your existing data be used? I mean, something that I think of...
And who's going to pay you for that?
Yeah, and something that I think of are lawsuits and civil litigation of, contractors versus contractors versus the state and city, and having evidence and proof of things that were done at the time that they're done is astronomically valuable.
Totally. Yeah. I mean, a lot of it is cataloging data. But again, like any data, it's a question of who is interested in that data and what are they willing to pay for it.
Oh, yeah, 100%.
And so, I don't know, it's actually kind of an interesting thought project to take on.
Yeah, no, 100%, because marketing. And I mean, that's what I've been sitting here kind of saying. So,
yeah, for sure.
I think what is the minimum to really get into it? One of the things that we didn't talk about with equipment is also GCPs. Because if you're going to want to essentially have data that can be dropped into the right place and compare against other data sets, you're probably going to want to use GCPs. If you're taking measurements that are elevation based, you're probably going to want to use GCPs. There are a lot of things that you do not need GCPs for, but ultimately understanding your client's use case is critical and imperative. So you think about the $3,000 for the Mavic 3 Enterprise. You think about, let's call it $750 for an Osmo Pocket 3 to get the creator combo, and maybe $3,500 for a stack of arrow points. And you can really get in this for sub, what is that?
$10,000.
Yeah.
Sub 10 for sure.
Yeah. I mean, even you think, let's see, $3,750 and $3,500. Yeah. I mean, even sub $8,000. And that's so cheap to get into this, especially for what you can make. Because
that doesn't include software.
True, that does not include software. But sub $8,000 and having 4 clients can yield you, $200K a year, which ultimately is kind of the sweet spot, depending on, do I want to make money as a DSP or do I want to scale to manage other DSPs? And that answer is a very personal answer. So.
I would say a very large percentage of anybody out there that might be listening is going to want to be a DSP.
I think so too. I think it's always like,
Meaning
I want to
not-
build a great drone team, and then you realize how much work it is, and you're like, do I really want to do this or not? So,
Yeah, for sure. And do I really? Yeah, it's brutal, particularly when you're doing it virtually and with people kind of all over the place. That brings us back to getting back with Yoshi. I'd like to have that conversation with him because I know I don't know, it's a lot to take on. Yoshi over at Alamo Drones, and they're hiring W-2 employees actually as drone pilots. And
But
they're
they
one of
al-
the few doing that.
and they also value training because they understand the longevity and efficiency that they can get out of drone pilots, which is really refreshing
Totally.
to see, because you're just seeing so like drone jobber after drone jobber after drone jobber just continue to make the same mistakes over and over and over, and really trying to take, the what the price that they pay pilots lower and lower and lower, $4 a power pole GFY. Like, I'm sorry.
In GFY.
Yeah.
Not grateful for you.
Yeah. I mean,
Let's go with that.
Yeah. I mean, in all honesty, quality sells. And the quality of your 3D point clouds is going to sell. The quality of your creative videos is going to dictate the prices that you can charge. If you want to be like everyone else, then make orthomosaics, take the simple photos, use a cheap drone. But if you want longevity, if you want the high dollar drone jobs, you need to be considering going deeper, because the more skill that you have, the higher prices that you can dictate. And you also kind of elevate beyond the bracket of the drone jobbing companies. And there are rumors out there, Rob. There's a lot of speculation that there are particular drone jobbers that are intentionally trying to drive the cost down for drone jobbing to inhibit the success of drone service providers, to try to create larger networks. And
It's a long-term play. If you think about it, drive it down to drive it back up.
Yes.
When you control it.
Yes. It's a dirty play. So if it's true,
capitalism.
If it's true. Yep. Well, this is why you've got to have the skills to pay the bills. You got to know your worth. You got to know how to sell it. And if you're interested in learning more about construction mapping, we've got a really awesome class that we're going to be launching in November here on the system, the formula of creating these really high quality videos that ultimately do sell for higher price points.
Yeah.
So we're also going to be updating our mapping class, but our existing mapping class, which goes over drone deploy, Pix4D Mapper, and React, is still up, but we're going to be editing that to include site scan, reality capture, and a few others as soon as I can get my head out of the sand of production. So anyway.
For training, we've got even still a busy in-person training season here.
Oh man, it's crazy,
Yeah.
but it's great. It's a blessing, right?
Yep.
Which actually we're going to be doing an instructor training here in December, bringing on some new folks and essentially growing the instructor network. So very grateful for it. By the way, we had, it's funny, we had a student this last week who also teaches at UAV Coach. And I said, okay, now that you've been through one of our trainings and you've actually trained for UAV Coach, what do you think? And he's like, oh, well, UAV Coach is very good. It's very rudimentary, very basic. He goes, your stuff is just like way above and beyond, like it actually drives the skills that we need to be successful. And I'm like, so can you go on Google and Trustpilot and go say that? That being said, that made my heart happy. Also, I wish success to everyone out there in drone training. The pie is big enough, and I am very confident in our systems, habits, and routines that we teach for operations, that if you want a superior training experience, you know where to go, which is Drone U. On that bombshell, that's going to do it for us today. From everyone at the Drone U flight crew, my name is Paul.
I'm Rob.
And this is Ask Drone U.